What is up folks, welcome back to the channel. In this tutorial we are going to create this iPhone 17 Pro 3D illustration without using any 3D tool. Yes, no Blender, no Cinema 4D. We are going to create this in Figma, which is one of the easiest design tool to use. This is going to be a long tutorial and it will be all about using blurs, gradient, shadows to create that 3D depth and realistic shadows just like a 3D render. I'm going to share the Figma file for this in the description so that you can practice and follow along. But before we dive into this tutorial, I want you to understand few basic concepts about the materials that we are going to use in this tutorial. So without further ado, let's get rolling. Alright folks, let's first understand how to design different kind of materials in Figma using the basic gradients, blurs and shadows. We will apply these concepts in making our iPhone illustration 3D. To begin with, we will start with metal, how to achieve this metal look on any object. Now, I have this circular shape here and I want some metallic shiny look on this. So what I'm going to do here, I'm going to use a formula called DLT, which means dark, light and dark. So on this circular shape, I'm going to apply a gradient, a 3-color gradient, and using the formula DLD, I'm going to make the first color dark somewhere on the shades of darker gray, and the third color again dark, and the second or the middle color I'll make it light. So we'll have like somewhat kind of a metallic look here. Now to add more details to this, I'm going to create a circular oval here and make it a little white, and let's apply layer blur to this and increase the blur to somewhat like this, or increase the size a little bit. Let's tilt it like somewhere and increase the size a little more. Yes. So now we have this shiny metallic ball here, and which looks great, but I'll add some more detail to this. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to apply an inner shadow, go to effects, choose the inner shadow, and let's apply the inner shadow on the right side. So you need to increase the X value, and let's say around 24, and let's blur it like this and increase the opacity to 45, and let's blur it more somewhat like this. Yes. Now we need to add a detail on the right side as well. So I'm going to add another inner shadow, make the X value negative, so the inner shadow appears on the right side somewhat like this, increase its opacity to 35, and let's blur it. Yep. Yes. Now this is what I wanted to achieve, a metallic look on the ball, and maybe I'll just fiddle around with the color more. I'll just make it the end's color a little more darker. Yes. Now this looks like a shiny metal ball, and this is the point where it reflects most of the light. Right. Now let's move ahead and make a soft plastic material. So I have the circular shape on this artboard here, and we are going to make it look like a soft plastic ball. So let's apply a soft gradient to this ball. So select the ball, go to fill, apply a gradient, and I'm going to apply a gradient at somewhat at around this angle. And since our light source is on the left, so the color on the left will be lighter and the color on the right side will be darker. So let's apply the colors to it. You can choose whatever color you want. I'm going with red. So a lighter shade of red here and a darker shade of red here like this. Yep. Now, since the light source is on the left, this left edge will reflect more light, right? So go to effects, go to inner shadow, apply an inner shadow on the left side, increase the value to this somewhat like around 16 or whatever suits you. Change the color to white and increase the blur somewhat like this. Yes. So I'm going to add a little more detail to this. Now create an ellipse. Yep. And make it a light gray or almost white, and apply layer blur. So increase the value of the layer blur somewhat like this. Yes. Now this looks like a soft plastic ball which is reflecting light at this point. You know that this point on the ball reflects most of the light, right? Now as I decrease the blur, it will look like a very hard plastic, which is very shiny and reflects most like this, like the somewhat similar to the bowling balls that you see in a bowling alley, right? Now if I increase the blur, it will become a soft plastic ball, something like this. Yes, this is what we wanted to achieve here. Yeah. Now let's move ahead and make a glass. Now let's create our glass material. Well, creating glass material is very easy. We are going to use this formula called CRS, which means center depth, rim highlight, and specular detail. Well, to create center depth, I'm going to use a radial gradient. So go to the fill settings, apply a gradient. From linear, change it to radial, and apply a darker color here, another darker color at the end, and let's change the opacity of the second color to 0% and the first color to 10%. So it's, well, anything is barely visible now, right? But we have a very minute detail here. Now let's add a rim highlight. To create a rim highlight, I'm going to use the stroke, apply a stroke, apply gradient to the stroke. Let's change the first color to white and second color again white, but the opacity for the second color, we will take it as 0, and let's increase the stroke width to somewhat like 2. Yeah, this is fine. And now let's create a specular detail on this glass. To create specular details, I'm going to grab my pen tool and create a curve like this. Go to the stroke settings and change the width profile to this, the one which has both edges of the pointed edges, right? And let's add a blur to this. Go to effects, layer blur, and just blur this a little more, something like this. Yes. Now that's how you make a glass. Now let's apply all these concepts to our iPhone 2D illustration and make it look like a kick-ass 3D render. Alright folks, this is where things get really interesting. We are going to turn this flat 2D iPhone 17 Pro illustration into kick-ass 3D illustration, which almost looks like a 3D render. And don't worry, I'll drop the link to this Figma file in the description so that you can play around with your own colors and add your own creativity to it. Let's start by understanding the layer structure of our flat 2D iPhone. At the base, we have the iPhone body, and sitting right on top of it is the MagSafe panel. Next, we have the camera plateau base layer, followed by the extrusion layer, which is basically represents the height of this camera plateau. And on top of it, we have got the main camera plateau layer itself with the 3 cameras, the flash, the mic, and the sensor. Okay, so let's do the detailing on the phone body first. So I'm going to turn off all other layers and so that we can focus on the phone body, right? Now we have this phone body and this MagSafe panel here. So let's start with these two. Now, if you look at it on the reference image, we have this soft body kind of look here. So like similar to what we did in case of plastic material, right? So I'm going to do the same here. I'm going to apply a gradient. The color which is closer to the light will be brighter or light, and the color which is far from the light will be dark. Something like this. Yep. Now let's do the same on the MagSafe as well. Apply the color gradient here. This color will be a little lighter than this as well, and this color will be something like this. Maybe I'll just make this color a little bit more lighter. Yeah, like this. Now if you look at the reference image, we have a shiny edge on the left side of the phone, right? So we will add this shine on the left side of the phone. Now select this phone body layer, go to effects and add an inner shadow. Increase the X value to around 41, or maybe around, let's increase a little bit more, around 44. Let's blur it, and first let's change the color to like white and increase the opacity to around 35%. Let's increase the blur more, let's say around, let's increase the blur to up to 50, right? Now, this looks fine, I guess. Now we are going to add one more detail on the left hand side. Now if I zoom into this image, right, and look closely, we have this dark shadow on the left side here again, right? So how we are going to add same on this? Again, we will use the inner shadow. So add another inner shadow. Now this time we are going with the dark, right? So I'll increase the X value to something like this. Increase opacity to around 60%, and now let's blur this. I think I'll need to change the color to something like dark purple. Yeah. Yeah, this looks nice. Or maybe I just need to reduce the blur. Yes, this is fine. This looks nice. This we wanted to achieve. Yeah. Now let's look at the right side. Now if I zoom into the reference image and we see here is a light on the right edge as well and a darker shadow here as well, right? So again, we are going to do the same thing. So I'm going to add another inner shadow here, but this time on the right side. Something around -38 or 40. Let's increase the opacity to around 35% and change the color to white. Now let's increase the blur to something like this. Yeah, this looks nice. Now on the MagSafe panel, I'm going to add a little more detail here. Like if you observe this image clearly, we have this outline here on this part, a darker outline here, and it goes light on the right side, right? So I'm going to add a stroke here, add a gradient stroke basically. So let's add a stroke there and make this side a little lighter shade of gray. Sorry, purple. My bad. Like this, and this side a darker shade of purple. Something like this. Yep. Let's increase the stroke width to around 3 pixels, and I guess I have to make this side a little lighter. I guess this seems fine to me. Or yeah, this seems fine, and let's make this a little darker. Yeah, this looks nice. Yeah. To make it a little more interesting, I'm going to add some noise on this phone body layer and this MagSafe panel layer. So let's select the body layer, go to effects and add a noise. Now let's change the color of the noise to around dark purple, something like this. Well, this is too loud, I guess. Let's reduce the noise size to 0.2 and let's take the opacity around 20%. Yeah, this seems fine. Now let's add the noise on the MagSafe panel as well. So noise, yeah, let's reduce it to 0.2 and take the color to what almost the color of the MagSafe panel and make it a little darker, and let's reduce the opacity to 20%. Yeah, this looks fine. Now why we did this? Now the real world objects have some kind of noise on their surface, right? They are not perfectly smooth, so that's why we have added the noise here to make it more real. Now moving ahead, let's turn on the camera plateau base layer and let's look at our reference image. So this layer is dark and has this white shadow around it, right? And like if I zoom in more and I see a stroke around it as well, right? So let's do it on this layer. So let's add a gradient, a little bit of darker gradient. This is a little bit too dark, so I'm just going to put this color. Yeah, this seems fine, and yeah, this seems fine to me. Now let's add a stroke to it. White stroke, let's make it around 2 pixels and let's reduce the opacity to 60%. That's too much, maybe 40%. Yeah, this seems fine to me. Now let's apply the drop shadow, the white shadow that we see around it, right? So let's change the color to white first and let's put the value around say around 24 and let's increase the X value on the right side to around 24. Yeah, this seems fine, and let's increase the blur now. To somewhat around 56. Yeah, this seems fine to me. Now let's add another drop shadow which will go on the left. So let's increase the shadow on the left side, change its color to white, and then let's increase the blur to around 56. Yeah, this seems fine to me. Now let's add noise to it as well. Go to it, add the noise, let's do it around 0.2 and reduce the opacity to around 20%, and let's choose a dark purple for this, something like this, 20%. This seems fine to me. I'm going to make a drop shadow a little more brighter, so I guess we have this around 25. Let's do it around 40. Both the drop shadows that we have, 40, 40, and yeah, I guess this seems fine. Or maybe just reduce it to like 32% and another to 32%. Yeah, this seems fine to me. Now let's apply the dark shadow on the right edge. Now if we look at our reference image, we have this dark shadow here on the right edge and a curved dark shadow here on this rounded edge, right? So we are going to apply the same. Now for this, I'm going to grab my pen tool and draw a straight line up to here and make it a little curve. Yeah, something like this. You don't need to be very precise. It's going to blur anyway. So now let's apply the blur to this. Layer blur and increase the blur up to around 48, I guess is fine, or maybe around 45. Yeah, this seems fine to me. And maybe change the stroke profile to something like this. Or increase the stroke width to around 42. This seems fine to me, I guess. Yeah. Now let's make a dark shadow on the rounded edge here. So I'm going to grab my pen tool again and make a curve like this. Yeah, this seems fine. Now let's change the stroke width profile to this one with the both point edges at the end. And now let's apply the blur. Increase the blur all the way up to, yeah, so I think 44 is fine for the same. And I'm going to grab this point and put it somewhere like here and make it a little more curve. So I'm going to increase, yeah, this seems fine. This seems nice to me. I'm going to group both of these dark shadow layer and put them behind the camera plateau base layer. So let's grab, this one is outside the frame, so I'll push it inside the frame. Select both of the layer, group them, Ctrl G to group, and let's call them dark shadows on right. Now let's push them behind the camera plateau base, and I guess this is fine, but I think I'll increase the stroke width to around 46 here, and this one as well I'm going to increase it around 46. Yeah, this is fine, or I'll just push it a little more towards the left and decrease the opacity of this to around 90%. This looks better, I guess. Now let's move ahead and turn on the extrusion layer. So let's turn on the camera plateau extrusion layer. Now what this layer represents is the height of the camera plateau. And let's look at our reference image first. So we have a darker color on the left edge and the brighter color on the right edge. So I'm going to apply the same, apply a gradient, and the left color will be a little bit darker. I guess this is good. And the color on the right will be a little lighter shade of purple. So I guess this looks good. Yeah. Now I'm going to apply drop shadow to this. Let's apply a drop shadow, increase the Y value to around 18 is fine. Let's increase the blur. Let's first increase the opacity to around 50. And now let's increase the blur all the way up to 45, 46 or 48 is fine. And maybe I'll increase the opacity to 60. Yeah, this seems fine. Now let's turn on the camera plateau layer. Let's turn on the camera plateau layer and apply a gradient to it. Now the gradient on the left will be lighter color, and on the right it will be a darker color. Something around here, or I'll just make it a little more lighter. Yeah, this is fine, I guess. Now why we did the opposite on the extrusion layer? We put the darker color on the left and the brighter color on the right, because this part, is not facing the light directly. Now, when the plateau layer, let's assume that our light source is somewhere on the left around 45 degrees. So this surface receives the light directly, and this surface is perpendicular to the base. So it will not receive the light directly. Hence, it will have a darker area here. So that's why we put the darker color on the left on the extrusion layer. Now I'm going to add a little more detail on the plateau layer. So I'm going to add a stroke, a gradient stroke, and let's put it this way, and choose our first color to be a brighter shade of purple, something like this, or maybe a little more bright. Yeah, this looks good. And change the second color to a darker shade of purple, but I will decrease its opacity to 0% and increase the stroke width to around 3. Yeah, this looks nice. This creates a little detail here which looks really good. Now I'm going to add some noise on this surface as well. Go to effects and select noise, make it around 0.2 and choose the color to around dark purple, and let's decrease the opacity to around 25%. Yeah, this looks nice. Now if we zoom in, we can see a little details here. Yeah, this is what we wanted to achieve. Now let's do the detailing on the mic layer. So turn on the mic layer and let's zoom it a bit. Now the effect that I want to create here is the impression of depth, like it's a cavity or a hole inside here, right? So how we are going to do it, select the mic layer, the ellipse, and make 2 copies of it. Press Ctrl D 2 times, so it will make 2 copies of it. Let's change the color of the first copy to red, and let's change the color of second copy to something like green, like this, right? Now what I'm going to do here is I'm going to select the top layer, which is the green one, and put it somewhat below here, right? And we are going to subtract, we are going to get this red area which is visible, right? So how we are going to do is select both of these layers, press Alt Shift and S to subtract, and here we go. This is what you want. Now let's change the color of this from red to, let's apply a gradient. So let's apply a gradient here. Let's apply a 3 color gradient. Yeah. Now since this again will not face the light directly, so it will have, this color will be darker. So let's choose a darker shade of purple. This will be a little bright, and this will be again a little dark. Something like this, and let's make this a little more brighter. Yeah, that's like it. And that's how we created a something out of a whole kind of impression here. Now if we look at it, this looks nice. Now let's do the detailing on sensor layer. So turn on the sensor layer and let's select this ellipse, and we are going to create a small impression of depth here, and we will do it by using 2 gradient strokes. So let's add the stroke first and make it a gradient stroke. Let's apply on the left side first, and I'm going to make it purple or lighter shade of purple, something like this. And second color will also be purple, but at 0 opacity. Now let's add the gradient stroke. Let's put it on the right, something like this, and let's choose a bright color for this side. This is fine. Let's choose a purple for this as well, but this will be at 0% opacity. And let's make the opacity for the second stroke 100%. And yeah, now let's increase the stroke width to around 2. 2 is a little high, so I'll just change it to 1.5. Yeah, this seems fine to me. Yeah, this looks nice. Now let's turn on the flash. So turn on the flash layer, and I'm going to create similar impression of that we created on sensor layer. So let's just copy the same strokes that we applied on the sensor layer. So select the sensor layer and just select both of the strokes and Ctrl C, and select this flash layer and Ctrl V. So both of the strokes that we applied on sensor layer are applied here as well. Now let's look at our reference image first. So on the flash here, we have this rings kind of detail here, which is quite easy to create. Might look complicated, but trust me, it's very easy to create. So let's create this.
So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to apply two inner shadow, one on the left and one on the right. So apply inner shadow, increase the X value to something like this, keep it very subtle, increase the blur, this is fine. Let's add another shadow and increase the, this seems fine to me, and also increase the blur to somewhat like 5.5. Yeah, this looks fine. Now let's create the inner details of this flash layer, right? So but first I'm going to do here is I'm going to create a group, and let's press Ctrl G, select the flash layer and press Ctrl G. It will create a group. Let's name it flash. Yes, and now we will create those inner rings and we will apply a blur to it. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to make a duplicate of this flash layer. Let's name it as ring, and on the ring layer I'm going to remove the fill and all the strokes that we applied and apply a new black stroke. Yeah, and let's apply these, remove these effects as well, and let's decrease the size of the ring, something like this, and let's duplicate the ring and let's decrease the size as well. Now select all the rings and group them. Let's call it rings, and let's apply the blur to all the ring layers that we have, right? So let's go to effects and apply layer blur, and let's increase the blur to around, increase the blur more, this should be around 6.5. Yeah, this looks fine to me. Let's decrease the opacity. Maybe I think this is fine. We will add more details to it. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to create a ellipse on it. So let's create an ellipse at the center. Let's make it a little bit on the yellowish side, something like on this, and let's increase the size a bit. Let's put it here. Now let's apply the layer blur to it. Let's increase the layer blur to around, it's too much, I guess this should be around 25 or maybe around 16. Let's decrease the opacity to around 50% and increase the blur a bit more. Yeah, this seems fine, and let's make a copy of it, and I'm going to increase the size of the one which is below it and apply a, make it white, and let's apply a layer blur, blur it more. Yeah, this seems fine. Now I'm going to grab my pen tool and draw a curve, something like this. Yeah, this seems fine. Now let's make it a little white and increase the size, and let's apply the layer blur. Let's increase the blur to somewhat around this size and change the stroke with profile to this one with the pointed edges on both the side. Now let's create another curve. Let's grab the pen tool again and let's create another curve like this. Looks fine, and now let's apply the blur to it. Increase the blur to somewhat like more. Yeah, this is fine. This looks good, and that's how we have created the camera detail, flash details on it, and this looks fine to me. And maybe I'll decrease the opacity of these layers to around 84%, and yeah, this is it.
Wait. Kudos to you if you have followed along till here. I just want to tell you that you are doing good, you are awesome, and back to the tutorial.
Welcome back, folks. I know this has been a pretty long tutorial, so to save some time, I'll just walk you through the detailing on one lens, and once you see how we do it here and once you see the process, you will be able to apply the same detailing on the other two lenses. So let's get started.
Let's start detailing on the lens base part first. So let's select this layer, lens base, and if you look at this image, we have this darker color, a lighter color, and again a darker color, and these two shiny parts here. So what is this? This is what we done in case of metal, DLT, dark, light, and dark. So we are going to apply the same here. Let's
apply the gradient, and I'm going to apply a 4 color gradient. Yep, and this color is fine, I guess. Let's change the color, these two colors to light. Yeah, something like this, and this would be fine, I guess. And let's apply the drop shadow here. Go to effects and apply drop shadows. So I'm going to increase the opacity to around 45 first, and let's increase the value to around 8, and let's slightly increase the blur to around 5. This seems fine to me. Now let's apply these two details, these shiny parts, right? So I'm going to grab the pen tool and draw a curve like this, and let's change the width profile to somewhat like this, and let's apply layer blur. Let's increase the blur way up to around 40. 40 is be fine, or 42 would be fine, I guess. This seems fine, and again I'm going to select the pen tool and draw a curve here as well. Let's change the width profile to this one, and let's apply the blur. Let's increase the blur all the way to 40. Now let's put it a little bit up. That's fine. I guess I need to decrease the blur a little bit more here. So let's go with 38. Yeah, this seems fine to me. Now let's move and do the detailing on this part, lens top section or the rim. Right, again we see we have a gradient here, so let's apply a gradient. Now this is the light facing part, so the left color will be a lighter shade of purple, somewhat like this, and the right color will be a darker shade of purple. Let's change the color to dark purple here, and this would be fine, I guess. Yeah. Now if you look closely on this part, we have this shiny edge here and this dark detail here. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to grab my pen tool and draw these details. So let's draw these. So let's grab pen tool and draw it along the circumference. Make sure it's in line with the circumference of this part. So let's increase value to around stroke width to around 6, and change the width profile to this one with the both pointed edges, and let's apply the layer blur. Yeah, we have this shiny edge here now. Yes, and let's draw this one as well, this dark detail as well. So let's grab the pen tool and let's draw it something like here. Let's reduce the stroke width to around 2 first, and let's adjust the curve. This seems fine to me, and let's change its color to dark purple, something like this, something even darker. Here let's increase the width to around 4, and let's apply the blur. Let's change the width profile as well, and let's now apply the blur. Let's increase the blur all the way up to 8 maybe. Yeah, this seems fine to me. Maybe I need to increase the stroke width as well, maybe around 6. Yeah, this seems fine to me. Now let's do the detailing on the lens part. So if you zoom into this image and observe here, I see a 3 level of depth. So this is the first level of depth, this is the second, and this is the third, and then we have this greenish and bluish part here, which is the lens glass, right? So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to create 3 level of depth. And how will I create it? Let's select this layer lens and make a copy of it, and let's change the color to black, pitch black, and let's rename this layer. Let's call this black ellipse. and let's reduce its size to somewhat like this. This seems fine to me. And let's make 2 copies of it. Press Ctrl T twice, and on the first copy let's change the color to any random color, and on the second layer as well change the color to any random layer. Make sure both colors are different and have some contrast. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to push the second copy a little bit down, yes, and we are going to subtract these 2 layers, so we will get this red part, which will be our text, right? So how we will do this? Select both of these layers, press Alt Shift S, and we have our first level of depth. So we have the subtract group. Let's rename it as first level. Yep. Now again make 2 copies of this black ellipse layer, change the color to any random color. Yep, and let's push the second copy down, and then we will have our second level of depth. So let's select both of these layers, press Alt Shift S. Yep, like this, and we have our second level of depth. Now again, let's rename this first. Let's call this second level. And again, I'm going to make 2 copies of this layer, change color to any random color. And this will be our third level of depth. So select both these layers and press Alt Shift S, and so we have 3 levels of depth now, and we will color these. Now let's rename this as third level. Now let's first color this. I'm going to select this color, make it a little bit lighter, somewhat like this, and let's select the second layer, and I'm going to apply a 3 color gradient here. So the color on the left will be similar to the first level of depth, and the color on right as well will be similar to first level of depth. And on the middle color, I'm going to use a darker shade of gray, very subtle dark shade of gray, something like this. And the third layer, I'm going to make it a little more darker, yeah, something like this. And first layer will be darker, yeah, something like this. Yeah, now this creates the depth. Now it's similar to what we have here, right? So I'm going to make its first level even more darker. Let's make it, yeah, this seems fine. Now let's do the trailing on the lens, right? So if we see here, we have this bluish and greenish kind of tint here. So I'm going to apply a gradient. Let's change the color to something around dark shade of blues and greens. Let's see this color and this color, yeah. So we have like teal color here, and let's draw these details. So we have detail on here, here, and here. So we have three curves here. So I'm going to make 3 curves like this, and let's change its color to white. Let's first reduce the stroke width to around 3, and let's change the color to white. Let's change the width profile to this one with the 4 pointed edges, something like this, yes. And let's apply blur. This seems fine to me. And again, what more detail we have? So I need to apply, make a curve again here. Change the width profile to this one, and let's change the color to blue, this blue, and let's apply layer blur. Yeah. This is fine, and we have detail on this curve as well. So let's draw the curve and change the color to somewhat around the shades of greenish. Yeah, this is good, and let's blur it. Let's blur it even. This seems fine to me. And now let's do the drilling on this part. So this is the reflection of the edges of the glass. So let's draw the curve. Make sure this is well aligned to the circumference. Yeah, this is good. And let's change the color to white and change the width profile to this one with the pointed edges, and let's apply the blur. I think 4 will be fine. This is fine, I guess. Let's apply one more. Grab the pen tool here and let's make it a little more curved. Let's again change the width profile to this, and let's apply the blur. This is fine, I guess, but I'm going to reduce the opacity to around 80%. Yeah. Now let's make one curve here as well. And let's reduce the stroke width to around 2, and let's apply the blur. This is fine, I guess. Yep, we are done. We are done with the tutorial. I know this was quite long, but if you had followed along, you have built a solid foundation. Remember, it's all about chasing the details. Now you know how to create them. Just practice more to refine your skills and create awesome stuff.
Alright folks, this is it for this video. If you found the video useful, please consider subscribing my channel or share the video with someone who might find it useful. And if you create something with the Figma file I shared, do tag me on my socials, which will be there on the Figma file as well. See you in the next video. Till then, this is me, Shashank, signing off.